Making steel. It was the foundation of the U.S. industrial economy in the latter half of the 19th century. Plants as big as towns employed hundreds of men who processed iron ore with coke to make pig iron in a blast furnace and then cast it and roll it into finished steel products. These huge integrated mills dominated the steel business for more than a century. But in the 1960s, mini-mills, which used recycled steel from junk cars and industrial scrap, turned up the heat on the big integrated producers. Because they could run on less labor and could produce smaller batches, production costs at mini-mills were 20% less on average than at their integrated competitors. Today, mini-mills account for the majority of steel production in North America, and the integrated producers that are around today are leaner versions of their former selves, most of them driven into bankruptcy at one point or another over the past 2 decades. How could the big steel makers have lost their dominance to the mini-mills? Couldn't they have used their superior economic heft to outlast their rivals? No, according to Harvard Business School management professor Clayton Christensen, because they fell victim to a disruptive force. After this quick message, listen to Professor Clayton Christensen in a lecture describe how mini-mills successfully assaulted the heart and soul of the steel business.
When the steel mini-mills became technologically viable in the mid-1960s, the quality they could produce was really crummy. In fact, the only market that would accept what a mini-mill made was the concrete reinforcing bar market way down there at the bottom, because there are almost no specifications for rebar anyway, and then once you buried it in cement, you could never verify if it met spec. And so it was a great market for crummy products. And as the mini-mills attacked the rebar market, the integrated mills were just delighted to wash their hands of the business because it was such a dog-eat-dog commodity. Their gross margins were only 7%, and it only accounted for 4% of the industry's tonnage. And so as the mini-mills expanded their production of rebar, the integrated mills just shut their lines down or they reconfigured them to make more profitable products at a higher tier in the marketplace, because there they could earn almost double the gross margins. And it never made sense to invest to protect the less profitable option when they had the possibility of investing to strengthen their position in a more profitable piece of the business. And the mini-mills, in contrast, made lots of money as they were competing in the rebar market because they had a 20% cost advantage. And this went on until 1979, when the mini-mills finally succeeded in achieving their objective of driving the last high-cost integrated mill out of the rebar market. And then if you look at the historical pricing statistics, the price of rebar collapsed by 20%. Turns out that a low-cost strategy only works as long as there's a high-cost competitor around. And as soon as they were gone, it was just low-cost mini-mill slugging it out against low-cost mini-mill in a commodity market, and prices quickly gravitated towards cost. And the reward for victory was they couldn't make money. So what are they going to do? You know, for a while, they all tried to become more efficient in production, but as everybody got efficient together, it was just a recipe for survival and not prosperity. And then one of them looked up market and thought, geez, if we could just figure out how to make bigger and better steel, we'd make money again. Because there the margins were a lot more attractive and the competitors had much higher cost. And little by little, as they figured out how to do that, they were able to attack angle iron and bar and rod, and as they did so, the reaction of the integrated mills was they were just relieved to wash their hands of the business. It never made sense to invest to protect the less profitable end of the business when they had the option of reconfiguring those lines to make structural steel where the margins were much more attractive. And so as the mini-mills gained share and the integrated mills fled to that tier of the market, the mini-mills, because they had a 20% cost advantage, rolled tons of money until 1984, when they finally succeeded in driving the last high-cost integrated player out of that market. Then if you look at the historical pricing statistics, the price of angle iron and bar and rod collapsed by 20%. And the reward for victory was they couldn't make money. So what are they going to do? They got to move up market. And if you look back at the issues of Iron Age in the 1980s, all of the industry's technologists saw these barbarians, but they were certain that they would be stopped at the gate. Because a lot of the properties that are required to meet spec in the building of a big building or bridge were imparted to the steel in the rolling process of a big integrated mill, and you just couldn't get these properties in a mini mill format. But what the technical experts hadn't thought about was how desperate the mini mills were to figure out a way around those known obstacles, because it was the only way they could make money. And at the beginning, all the mini mills could do is roll little 6-inch I-beams down at the bottom of the structural beam market, the kind that undergird mobile homes and things like that. And as they hit the low end of the structural beam business, the integrated mills were so relieved to be rid of that business because it was such a dog-eat-dog commodity. And it never made sense to invest to protect the less profitable piece of the business when they had the option of investing to strengthen their share in a much more profitable piece of the business. And so as the mini mills were competing in the structural beam market, their profitability bounced back because the high-cost competitors were much easier prey until the mid-1990s, when Bethlehem Steel shut down its last structural beam market, and then the reward for victory was pricing collapsed, dog-eat-dog commodity, and the mini mills had to move up into sheet steel, and right now they're in the middle of that business. Now you notice that I didn't have to use the word stupid management one time to tell this story, because there's no stupidity involved whatsoever. But what is happening here is that there is an asymmetry of motivation. So every time when the mini mills came into the low end of the market, they attacked an application where they could make money, but the much larger competitors were actually motivated to flee rather than fight. And if you're David and you want to beat Goliath, it's a great way to win the fight is to create a situation where the giant is motivated to run away from you rather than fight you. And that's why the odds so heavily favor the entrance to the industry when they choose a strategy of disruption, because the competitors are motivated to flee rather than fight. And it helped me understand why, if an innovating company enters an industry with a better product, with a sustaining strategy, trying to make a better product that could be sold for attractive prices to the best customers in the market, it helped me understand why the incumbents almost always beat the entrant. And that is, if you enter with a better product into the established market, you've created a situation where the leader is motivated to fight you rather than flee. And he always has more resources to throw into that battle. And so the answer to this question of how do I beat the competitors is to disrupt them.